1 लाख से भी कम रोजगार 15 साल में, और ये लोग बात करते रहते हैं, कुछ से कुछ बोलते रहते हैं।
कल तक कहता था कि असंभव है 10 लाख देना, आज भाजपा वाला कह रहा है कि हम आएंगे तो 19 लाख रोजगार देंगे। अरे किसको बेवकूफ बना रहे हैं?
पढ़ाई किया है, इतना डिग्री लिए है, ग्रेजुएशन कर चुके हैं और अभी तक रोजगार नहीं मिला।
Unemployment, बेरोजगारी और नौकरी. These terms were more than often heard in the Bihar election campaign this time than Mandir Masjid, India, Pakistan or Hindu Musliman. Surprised? Don't be.
Because 54.03% Berozgari is the biggest election issue for at least 54.03% of voters of Bihar, according to a CVoter survey.
The Mudda of Berozgari and unemployment is not only being raised by the politicians of Bihar but also by the people on ground. But how many people from Bihar are exactly unemployed? Why is it the biggest poll issue? The answers to these questions can be gauged by looking at two major factors in the run-up to the elections that have had devastating effects on Bihar: the COVID-19 pandemic and the migrant crisis. And to gauge its effects on Bihar, let's have a look at some data. Right in the peak of the national lockdown in the month of April, Bihar's unemployment rate rose to a record 46.6%, almost twice of the national unemployment rate of 23.5% according to CMI. This figure of 46.6% is what Tejashwi Yadav made his poll plan. Now come September, Bihar's unemployment rate according to CMI showed significant improvement to 11.9%, but was still way more than the national unemployment rate of 7.4%. Now that begs the question, how and why did the unemployment rate in Bihar break records? One of the biggest contributing factors, the migrant crisis. The central government said in the Lok Sabha in September that out of the 10.5 million migrant workers who returned to their home state just between March to June, Bihar accounted for 14.3% of them. That is over 1.5 million people returning to the state. Nikhil RG of the United Nations Children's Fund, who has been working closely with the Bihar government on the migrants crisis, told India Spend that this figure should be considered at least double the government's figure. So that would mean around 3 million people returned to the state. Add to this the severe economic crisis that the country was grappling with amid the pandemic. Bihar was one of the worst hit states in terms of job crisis. That brings us to the question, what did the state and the central governments do about it? Between May and June, Prime Minister Modi launched two mega schemes to tackle the job and migrant crisis. Rupees 1 lakh crore to Manrega to boost unemployment in villages. Rupees 50,000 crore Garib Kalyan Rozgar Abhiyan, that is GKRA, to provide work for over 3 months to returnee migrant workers in 6 states, including Bihar. Now, out of the 116 districts listed under the GKRA scheme, 32 districts were from Bihar. According to India Spend, Bihar had used up over 91% of its allocation of the rupees 2,886 crore in the first quarter alone and had only 8.45% left. So how effectively were these schemes implemented? Citing a report by the People's Action for Employment Guarantee, India Spend reported that Bihar had issued job cards to 1.1 million households under Manrega between 1st April and 31st of August, but only 2,132 households managed to complete 100 days of work by the 31st of August. The state issued another 2,30,000 job cards by 15th October, but only 4,551 households had completed 100 days of work by mid-October. Moreover, before the second quarter ended, Bihar's Manrega fund had a negative balance of rupees 159 crore. This explains why several workers are yet to receive wages despite getting jobs under these schemes. No wonder every party in their election manifesto has made big promises on the issue of jobs and employment. The Mahagathbandhan led by RJD's Tejashwi Yadav has promised 10 lakh jobs in the first cabinet meeting if elected to power, and to include one person from each rural family under Manrega. The BJP's Sankalp Patra resolves to generate 19 lakh job opportunities, almost double the figure given by the RJD. JDU's Saath Nischay speaks about various schemes for the youth to become entrepreneurs so that they can generate employment for others. The Congress has promised to ensure employment for youth, including a rupees 1,500 monthly allowance to the unemployed. But well, these tall promises by parties usually remain on paper, don't they? The implementation is either flawed or delayed, which has forced Biharis to migrate to other cities and states in search of work for decades now. And the exodus of migrant labourers who had returned to Bihar amid the lockdown has already begun as the restrictions began to ease. Government after government has promised employment to the people of Bihar for years. But these dismal figures paint a clear picture of every government's dismal performance before every election.